Well, I'm delighted to introduce my guest today, Hannah Aske, founder of TenFour Ministries in the UK. Hannah,
Okay.
thank you for joining me on Hope Cake.
It's good to be here.
So Hannah and I first met about a year ago at the Hand in Hand Children's Ministry Conference in Birmingham. And we had one of those really funny, what, really moments that God loves to throw at us, didn't we? I was there as an exhibitor and Hannah came over to our stand. So we started our conversation, as we very often do, by asking how far she travelled to be there, only to find out that she came from precisely the same town as me, down on the southwest coast.
It's nice
And
to
we
be.
were practically next door neighbours. So we have made it a priority to meet for coffee by the sea lots of times. And I really love our chats that we have about all things kids ministry. And Hannah's just really passionate. So I'm excited to have her on Hope Cake today. So
It's good to be
would you tell us all about TenFour Ministries, please? What is the mission behind what you do?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, so I love how we met as well. That's always just like my favorite story of how we came
It's
together.
fun, isn't it? I know.
But yeah, no, I launched TenFour Ministries in October 2024 now, I think. So it was when we met, I think I was only like 3 or 4 months into actually launching it, which was, great. So it's always been
really
a
new.
hard one. Yeah, it was really new, really new. And God's taken me on this massive journey over the last year. But I set up TenFour because I just wanted to inspire and equip churches to run outreach children's ministry. I wanted to see children of all backgrounds welcomed into the church community and discover the love that Jesus has for them. And my heart has always been outreach ministry. You can see the hurt in the world. You can see the lack of hope. You can see so many children that kind of just wander around, get into trouble, like anxiety levels are through the roof. And when I was working in schools and working in different environments of churches, it just broke my heart. And I was just like, okay, where is the church in this? Why isn't anything being done? Why is there so many places where children can't go, but like also what is going on? So
So is that a gap that you saw then? Was outreach kind of a gap that you saw in children's ministry?
Well, I saw that there was just no children in church in general, but also that, nobody was reaching those children in those high deprivation, broken homes areas. It was really hard to see Christians in those environments, especially in our local area anyway. And so I kind of asked the question, is this happening not just in our local area, but is this happening all across the UK? And I started linking in with different organizations, asking them different questions. And it's the same that's going on all across the UK. There's not that many churches that think outreach ministry is a priority. There's not many churches that think that they need to get out the building. And it might be a capacity issue. It might be a volunteers issue. It might be a funding issue. It might be any of those issues. But it was like, okay, how can we actually help people to hear more and more about Jesus? And I think like this was probably happening pre-COVID anyway. But then I think COVID just kind of hit it on the nail, didn't it, really? And everything changed.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a huge watershed in so many ways, isn't it?
Exactly.
COVID. It really changed so many things.
Yeah, but also like churches were thinking, oh, we need to rethink things. We need to do something new. But then when they were thinking about doing something new, I wonder how high children's ministry was on the agenda, or was it something that was quite low down? It's like, actually, we need to just get people back in. Children weren't necessarily a high priority. I don't know. It's hard to know exactly what's happened everywhere. But what I do recognize now is that there are a lot of churches that are trying to employ and waking up a little bit, going, okay, we need to do something. And so I thought, right, okay, I need to just try something, try and provide a space where people can come and feel equipped, feel inspired, feel empowered to do something, because it might be that children's workers in the past have been hurt, so they don't want to come back to children's ministry. Or it might be that children's ministers haven't even been trained, like, you know, has the focus of training been more on youth ministry than children's ministry. So I've set up 3 programs basically. One is one-to-one consultancy. So that's for children's ministers or people that are just stepping into a role. It might be somebody who is new to a role, doesn't have any experience, doesn't have any knowledge, doesn't have any qualifications, but they just need some sort of investment to come in. And that was me. Like, when I first started children's ministry, I was 16 years old. Didn't have any experience, didn't have any knowledge. My minister was just like, you're the person to come and lead our children's ministry. And I was like, okay.
That was brave, wasn't it?
Like, yeah, that's great. But it was all down to the investment and the encouragement that he gave that then built me up to then eventually have knowledge and have experience and have the qualifications. And sometimes that is what people need. They need that one-to-one empowerment from somebody who does know what's going on, does know the challenges of children's ministry, and has somebody to come alongside them and just go, you're doing a great job. You know, we all struggle with these challenges as well. It's not just you. I think that's something that people need. And so the one-to-one consultancy is for either somebody who's new or somebody who's actually been in it a long time and they just need somebody to support and encourage them and help them to think outside the box and think a little bit more creatively of how can we build things. So that's that one program. The other thing that I recognized was, I don't know about you, Joe, of what you've recognized, but like when it comes to children's ministry, a lot of it always ends up on one person. And like, do you know, like that one lead person who has to take absolutely everything on, because people who are volunteering, they're just like, I can't really give that much, you know, I can't help that way. So volunteer team training is so that everybody in your volunteer team has opportunity to gain a passion for it. That it's not just a case of they just turn up and do a teaching out of a book or whatever. They actually have dreams and visions for that, and it then alleviates that stress on that one person, and also makes your children's ministry sustainable, because, you know, if you're poorly one week, you need somebody to be able to take things on and take the leadership of it. So that was another thing that I recognized, because also I think children's ministers, on average, according to statistics, only last 3 years before they move on to something else. How can you build anything within 3 years? I've just moved to this church that I'm in now. I've only been there 3 years, and I feel like I've only just got somewhere, but I haven't been able to pass the baton on to anybody. So if I leave now, it's all going to fall flat. So, you know, how can we keep that sustainable? And the third program is Launch Program, which is all about outreach. That includes schools ministry, that includes setting up a midweek group. And actually, what does that look like? So all the ins and outs of that. All of these programs hopefully help churches to, you know, make sure that they're intentional. What are they building? Thinking about how they're discipling children, not just have planning from a book, but actually being creative and thinking, how are we taking children from one place to another in their spiritual growth? Then sustainable, how is it going past you? Like what we just said about the volunteers. Kingdom focused, how are you thinking outside the building? And excellent, how are we actually just doing our best, that we're not just... Do you ever find it like there must be some places where it's just going through the motions? We're just every single Sunday just turning up, take the kids out, you know, and that will be it. That's enough. The kids had something and that's it. And I'm like, that's not enough. Like, I think these kids
Yeah.
need more than that, you know?
Yeah.
And I think through just pure investment, you can see so much growth in them, and then they become leaders, and then they become further on just through that investment. But I mean, the mission can seem impossible, like absolutely impossible. Like you look at everything and think it's impossible, but we have to do something. So TenFour actually stands for the verse Ezra 10:4, which is rise up. This matter is in your hands. We will support you. So take courage and do it. And
I love
that,
that.
no, it's when I hate names. I hate figuring out names when it comes to kids clubs, when it comes to anything. I just go,
Yeah.
I can't do names. I don't know how did you come up with Hope Cake Pod? How did you do that?
The Lord gave it to
The
me.
Lord. Yeah.
Totally. Well, no, okay. I'll tell you the story behind it. So
Go on.
I was about to give a talk at Swim, so Southwest Youth Ministries. It was the Sunday before I was going to them to give a talk, and I had a picture while I was standing in church, which I assume was from the Lord. It may have just been from my head, but I think the Lord gave me a picture of a big cake that spelt out the word hope. So it was 4 cakes, one of each letter, and there was a slice taken out of the letter P, and it was a rainbow cake. It showed that it was a rainbow cake. And I just felt like God was saying, just like cake is better when you share it, hope needs to be shared. We've got hope that needs to be shared. So I thought that was just for my swim talk, and it did go in there. But when I was thinking about the podcast and the name for the podcast, I was walking around Torbay, and someone had very helpfully spray painted the word hope on almost every pavement that I walked on. I haven't seen it since, actually, but have you seen it when you've been walking? It's like all along the seafront. The word hope was like stenciled, and I saw it more than once. I saw a car number plate that had that spelt the word hope, and I thought, okay, I think the Lord's trying to tell me something here, because I've been saying, what should I call it? What should I call it? Yes, yeah. Hope cake is what came to mind, and it didn't exist anywhere else. So I thought I'll go with that then.
I love that.
There you go. There's my story.
And that's
this wasn't meant to be about me at all. This is meant to be about you.
But that's fine. In terms of coming up with names, that's exactly kind of how it happened with me. I was like going through different things, and I really liked like Rise Up and stuff, but I knew that was used like so many other places, like in terms of rise, like, come on, let's go, let's get up. So I literally just typed in the Bible app or Google, like, you know, Bible verses that say rise up, and Ezra 10:4 came up. Now, who knows Ezra 10:4? Nobody knows that as a normal verse or anything like that.
Doesn't trip off the tongue.
Exactly. But this is literally the message that I have for the church of, like, you know, children's ministry, this matter is in your hands. I'm here to support you, but you guys have got to take courage and you've got to do it. So it's all that empowerment there. And I was like, that's perfect. But then my dad was sat next to me and he was like, 10:4 then. 10:4, that's your name. And I was like, no. And then I actually looked into it as well. 10:4 is also like a radio signal, I think, in some ways. When people understand something, they go 10:4. And so it was like, also like, okay, if people understand the message, then they get it. So yeah, that's kind of literally how it came up. And so TenFour Ministries, and that's how it is. And that's who I am.
I love that. I think that's brilliant. It's really cool. And I'm glad you didn't go for an obvious thing. That's really cool. So that's what you do now. I'd love to know a little bit more about you as well. Who is Hannah Aske? So I know that you grew up in the church. Do you think your own experience of growing up in the church has impacted your ministry?
Yeah, I mean, I was in my life, I was in church. I've always been in a Christian family, but we were in church primarily between 0 and 5, and then between 5 and 11, we were in various different churches. Like we were church hoppers, you know. We weren't actually so throughout that time, it didn't mean that I didn't have that good Christian standing, but at the same time, and when we came to actually going to church, me and my brother were like, we don't want to go to church. But when it came to me being 11 years old, we went to the local church that was just up the road from us. And it honestly, it saved me at the time that I needed it. You know, I was in secondary school. I felt like I wasn't seen in secondary school. I didn't belong in secondary school. I got picked on, bullied and everything. But church was always a place where I could go to that I felt really safe and felt like I could be myself. The passion in that church was just contagious of kids ministry, that everything was all about kids ministry within that church. I mean, the church even cancelled their Sunday morning service because and made it just all about children. So it was a
Wow,
case
that's amazing.
I know, you don't hear about that in any other church, do you? But they
No.
decided to move the main service to the evening. So we had an evening service. But every single morning was just all kids. And the church, as in, like, I think the minister knew that the people would always be available on Sunday morning because they were available before. So that means that that's your strong volunteer team then. Everybody come to
Right.
church. I don't know if anybody would get away with that these but they did. So
No, do you know what? I feel a little bit like we feel like we've got too much choice now, and that actually people wouldn't volunteer and they would just leave and go to a different church that suited their timings. You know, we're a little bit like that, aren't we? We don't feel family focused all the time. Like, we don't treat our church like a family. If it's not floating our boat, we leave.
Exactly.
I've never done that, obviously.
No. But it was literally, I think that was just the contagious part that I could see. I was surrounded by that environment of being in children's ministry from a young age, volunteering. The minister didn't hold back from getting us to volunteer and be part of it from a young age. I started leading all the dances at 14 that then when it came to 16, he was like, yeah, you can take on the whole ministry, go for it. And it's like,
wow.
Okay. And so we continued on.
How did that go? Like, well, what did that feel like? Your first week, you're 16 years old and suddenly you're in charge of the kids ministry. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, he was very good at it was me and my brother who was younger and then two other people who were younger, that he kind of got us all together. We planned out a program, planned out the teaching. He helped us through it and stuff as well. And then was like, right, okay, go on, you guys do it. And apparently he told me a few years later, he didn't tell me on the day, but apparently he was like sitting at the back going, oh no, what have I just done? Because
I can imagine.
A little bit of a car crash, who knows, you know, but that's the thing. Like, and then we just grew each week and it was him trusting in us. It wasn't that like we didn't have adults around. All of the adults were still there in terms of ratios and it was just the people that were on the mic was me, my brother, and two other people as well. And just through continuous investment, continuous encouragement, and continuous passion from him, that's how we've kind of grown into it. And I think that was just, I value that so, so much, which is why I'm always really passionate about raising young leaders as well and giving them opportunity, giving them time, where I feel sometimes like, oh my gosh, what have I just done? Just exactly like he does. But at the same time, just seeing them grow and strengthen, and then they're your future children's ministers, you know, they're your future people that are going to take things on. So it's so important to raise young leaders.
Is that the kind of children's ministry that you are kind of encouraging churches to set up, to create in their environment?
Absolutely. Anytime that I'm talking to somebody, I'm like, who are your young leaders? Who are the people that you're bringing in? You know, don't just look for adults to serve in your children's ministry. You need young leaders in there every single week. They can see you do it. They can see that passion, and then they start to get it too. And I think sometimes we can just not think that young people are capable of it. We can just kind of downplay it, but actually, every single week I have a young person in on our Sunday morning. Every single week, I don't think I'd be able to do my midweek children's ministry without our young leaders there. Um, you know, they are just so passionate. They're so enthusiastic. They can do a lot more running around than I can do.
Yeah, right.
I can just be like, oh, quickly run over there, quickly run over there. And
Yeah.
they'll do it. And I'm just like, thank you so much. That was
And
amazing.
they just bring something different, don't they? That the kids really love. So I volunteered at Creation Fest in the kids ministry last year. Was it last year or the year before? I don't know. It all blurs into one. But we basically we had a whole bunch of young people who'd come over from California on a kind of a mission trip, which is quite a nice mission trip, actually, isn't it? To go to Cornwall for a week. And they were incredible. So every group had a young leader with them, and they were just so fun. Like, the kids loved them. They played brilliant games with them. They were able to do all the dance moves that I can't do, and they just brought something extra to that time. And I think that's so important. So important.
Yeah, I mean, the kids, they see something in them. They respect them because they're the next stage older, but also it gives the children something to aspire to be. So I have like kids that are in year 5 and year 6 are like, when can I be a junior leader? I'm so excited to be a junior leader. I want to be a leader. So they get the buzz for it. I've started asking some of our kids to be like people who watch out for the best listener, and the best listener will get a sweet, and the kids are actually doing it and stuff. So it's more so the older children that are like on that brink of, I could be a junior leader, but it's also giving them responsibility as well that they absolutely love. And they just thrive off it and they grow from it. So yeah, top tip, always get young leaders in, always.
Brilliant. So I've been poking around on your social media a little bit, because why not? And I noticed a post that you put on Insta that says, defining your win is how you begin. I love that. Great phrase.
Yes.
So let's talk about that. What defines a win for you?
I mean, for me, my win is always seeing a child say yes to Jesus. That's always going to be my ultimate win. That's why I do what I do. But what I mean is, if my win is seeing someone say yes to Jesus, then that means that everything that I plan, everything that I do needs to accommodate that win, doesn't it? It needs to lead to that win. So, if I then start outreach children's ministry, my win is seeing somebody say yes to Jesus. But if I don't have any gospel teaching within that ministry, how is anybody going to say yes to Jesus? So it's like being really intentional about those things. And I think our wins can change all the time. So you might be at a different stage where, if your win is seeing families disciple their children, okay, so what things are you going to put in place to make sure that your families are discipling their children? If you want to see a win of seeing children worship, how are you being intentional about putting worship into your programs? So the ultimate win is always seeing someone say yes to Jesus. That is why we do an outreach ministry. That is why we do a gospel message. That is why we do worship. That's why we set that culture for that. But then through other elements of my ministry, there's different wins there. At the moment, for this year, actually, specifically, we're focusing on family discipleship and worship and prayer. So it's like a case of, how can we make sure that everything feeds into that, and that we're giving kids the opportunity. We need to have wins, and you need to have your goals of saying, right, this is where I want to be. How am I going to get to that? How am I going to be intentional about building that? And it takes time to pray into those things as well. So really, really just spend time with Jesus and figure that out, really.
Yeah. It all sounds very strategic. Have you always had a strategy? Like when you were 16, did you have a strategy for your kids' ministry?
I think when I was 16, strategy was probably just to get through it. It's like my strategy was more building myself in confidence and stuff, and building my own strategy of, right, okay, what can I improve on? I think for each time, I was always encouraged to be reflective. So what went well? What didn't go well? What can I do better next time? So yeah, in essence, that is a strategy, because then you're like, okay, what can I do better next time? So you're improving yourself. But also, when you're building a ministry, how can the ministry go better? How can you reach further? How can you see greater results? So when you've defined your win, how can you see greater results in your goals and stuff? I don't know how you can build a ministry without strategy. I don't know how you
But I
can
think
do.
people try to. I think they just kind of, maybe they just sign up for a curriculum and they pick that and they just go through it every week, and without thinking much more than, okay, well, I've delivered something for the kids.
Yeah. And the thing is with curriculums, they're great, really great resources and things that I need. It means that if you just got a blank canvas, you haven't really got many ideas popping out for you, have you, and stuff. So it's really hard. But to be able to look somewhere, see a curriculum, then you can pick and choose. I think that's the most important thing, is picking and choosing ideas that fit into your whole ministry or your whole win. Like, something that they're doing might not fit into achieving your win. So why are you doing it? You don't have to do it just because it's on the curriculum. You can do something because it fits in. Or it might be that you see an idea and it just might need tweaking as well, so that you can figure it out as well. So yeah, curriculums are always great. Or I always use them as my Google of ideas. But I encourage any of my team as well just to really be led by the Holy Spirit about what is needed here and what is going to work. Jesus had a strategy of how he was doing ministry. We all need a strategy of how we're going to do things. But I think we need to have that constant posture of, okay, God, what do you want me to do here? How do you want me to lead here? And being really intentional. When I'm doing my consultancy sessions, I've read in this book, it's Children's Ministry on Purpose, by Steve Adams, and he gives this Lego illustration. So we all know Lego, but a child may sit on the floor with loads of Lego all over the floor. They try and make something, and they go up to their parents like, look what I've made. And the parent might go, wow, that's an amazing house. And he goes, that's not a house, that's a spaceship. How dare you not know what it is? But when we're doing Lego and we're following instructions and following a strategy of how to build that, then you can actually see what it's supposed to be, rather than just going crazy with some Lego and putting it together. Actually, if we're intentional about what we're building and have a strategy for that, then other people can recognize that too. And that's just so important that other people recognize what you're building, especially when you want to change the culture in the church, especially when you want parents to recognize what you're doing. I'm not just sitting here babysitting your children. Actually, you can see that I'm being really intentional about what we're doing for your children, and how important it is as well. So we have to be intentional and we have to have strategy.
Let's talk a little bit about that concept of babysitting then, because certainly when I've been on kids ministry, I've had parents come to collect their kids and they say, oh, thanks for having them. And that's really nice. That's really nice. But it does give the feeling that it's like, well, you've just been looking after the kids so that we can go to church, and the church part is the important part. Have you Have you come across that kind of attitude? Have you ever felt like you've been a bit sidelined, whether you've been a kid being shoved out to the back room or when you've been a grown up taking the kids out to the back room? Have you ever had that feeling of this is less important than what's happening in the main arena?
I mean, yeah, I think so. I think it can happen in so many places, and it's sad to see. I'm very thankful for the experience that I had in the first church that I was working with, where you didn't feel like that at all in any way, shape, or form. But I think that's a very rare place to be. And that has been so helpful to always have a minister that is like, children's ministry is so important that we're going to put it right there at the front line, that everybody can see what we're about. And you know, I'm very thankful that in the church that I'm in now, the minister, again, is very encouraging. Like, if I need help or if I need somebody to step in, he's willing to step in and volunteer and help out if I need that.
I think that's really unusual, actually, if the minister's willing to step in.
It is. And I think it's so sad to see that that is not happening in every church. You know, I think that it does feel like, oh, a box is ticked, you know, somebody else has taken the children away. That means that the service is nice and quiet, which means I can do my preach and nobody's talking over each other. Whereas we're in the back room where we've got loads of people going,
yeah. And have you had that experience? So I've had this experience where, you know, I serve on kids ministry quite regularly in my church, and but also I've done a talk to the main arena.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, it's so easy. Like, they sat and listened. No one's heckling. No one's asking for a biscuit or saying they're bored or can they go to the toilet. It was amazing. Like, all the grown-ups just sit there and listen. A wildly different experience than in the kids' room.
There's not a child rolling around in the corner trying to fight somebody else, or another child that's like drawing on the wall. I don't know. Like, it's just like,
right.
Sit down.
No one wandering off to do a handstand.
Yeah, so you don't have to change your tone of voice to be like, come closer, let's all come closer.
That's so funny.
We just love it though, don't we? We love kids ministry.
We do. So what would be, we talked about strategies and wins and all that kind of thing. What's your big picture vision? What would be the biggest win for you? That impossible thing that you know that only God can do?
Yeah. I mean, for me, through the first church that I was in that church for, now I'm thinking, like 20 years, I think I was in that church from 11, working there for 10 to 11 years as a children's and youth worker. And the beauty was seeing a child go to a young person, then become a leader, and then seeing a leader then take on the children's ministry that you were leading. And there's just that such beauty of longevity that you can just see growth within somebody. So seeing someone come to faith from a non-Christian background, then grow up and take on the lead of a children's ministry, that has been like my greatest win. In terms of passing on the baton, leaving a legacy behind that you can just be like, okay, I've done something, passed it on, empowered somebody, and then seen them do it. I want to see that happen in so many churches, because it's not all about me. It's not all about my ministry and what I can do. Actually, the ministry as a whole, it's just kingdom, isn't it? And we want to see more and more children come to know Jesus. So I want to see every single church have a thriving children's ministry. I want to see every single church have a leader within that who is passionate about it. I want to see every single minister be passionate about children's ministry. You know, these are the big pictures that you just want to see. You want to see people who are trained, encouraged, empowered. But unfortunately, the harvest is plenty, but the workers are few. And We just need more. But when it comes to that passing on the baton, I think of the story of Moses and Joshua. And the thing is, with Moses, he couldn't go into the promised land. But it says in Deuteronomy about Moses commissioning and encouraging and empowering Joshua to do that. And that's just as much of an achievement and such a beautiful thing to say that you've left a legacy and you're passing it on so that they can take it on further. So then children's ministry doesn't go like down. Actually, it's just stayed or even goes up. Do you know what I mean? Like we need to see growth. We don't want to see dips. And unfortunately, I don't know about you, but I see a lot of dips a lot of the time. And it breaks your heart because I'm like, there's so many children out there that do not know that they are loved, do not know that they're accepted, do not know that they belong somewhere. And actually to provide that space for them is just the greatest thing. So yeah, I want to see so much, Joe. I want to see so much. I'm excited.
Love that.
And yeah, and I think all I can do is just be faithful and obedient and see what's out there and keep going. And just to know and keep in my heart the importance of children's ministry. I think sometimes we can all get to that point where we get a bit tired, get a bit frustrated that things aren't growing. But we've got to recognize that if you keep going, you will see greater fruit. I think there was somebody who always said to me, Galatians 6 verse 9 of do not grow weary or do not grow tired of doing good, wasn't it? But at the right time, you will reap the harvest. And that's always been a verse that's been on my heart, that just keep going. Keep going. You will get there and you will have the reward. But yeah, the reward's in heaven, so it's all good. So yeah.
Well, there's so much we can dig into here. And the good news is this is part 1 of a series. So we're going to get to talk about all these things in a bit more detail over the course of the series and dig into your brilliant mind and all your great ideas for how churches can revive their kids ministry and have a thriving kids ministry. So thank you so much for episode 1. I can't wait for episode 2.
It's going to be good.